Greetings, all you One Piece fans out there. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din coming at you with another chapter review of One Piece, chapter 940, titled The Spark of Rebellion. Immediately gives me some Persona 5 vibes with that title, but I think that's just because Joker's been, finally put into Smash. But that is neither here nor there. As we get into our story proper, I love the cover page with Bartolomeo, having some unsellable candy art figures of the Straw Hat Crews, which kind of makes you wonder why he would even put it on display. But then again, I had to remember that Bartolomeo's kind of a troll. He just likes trolling people sometimes. But in their chapter proper, we come to find out that Law was actually really pissed at the even slightest inclination that Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin might have actually sold them out to any degree. And apparently he just kind of breaks things off with them for the most part. So he kind of leaves. I don't know if this is a permanent thing or he's just gonna meet up with them later after he rescues his friends or what. But I don't feel like, after everything they've been through, I don't feel that this is actually the case. I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually doing this to kind of throw whoever the true, mole is off the scent, so he can come in later and help out. That feels like a very Trafalgar thing to do. And we have Usopp and Nami kind of discussing this situation, with both basically admitting that they would ultimately sell out their friends because they're not too great with torture. But honestly speaking, they've been in situations like this and they've never been one to talk. So I feel like this is more of them just doubting themselves more than anything else. I've heard people being like, oh, after all this time you would actually go and sell out your friends? How could you? I can't believe they'd have this character regression and all that. I'm just like, no. They've always looked down on their true abilities and not been able to see that they're actually a lot more capable than they give themselves credit for. We then cut off to them, apparently meeting up with an old lady who basically laughing at the three men that we saw assault Komurasaki. And they're all, rich noblemen who got kicked out of the capital after she stole all of their wealth. And these men are all called, in a very basically punful way to a certain degree, what was it? Bongo, Byongo, Bongo, and Bingo. All these men who were actually, as it turns out, were all running a scam. One man was, doing arson and burning down various places. Another guy was making money off the fires by running a lumber store that sold wood for the repairs. And the monk, the old guy who we mainly saw the story of Komurasaki basically gold digging the hell out of him for, took advantage of the grieving families and charged an exorbitant price in order to, do the funeral processions. So they were all in on this massive scam that was causing people, injury, death, loss, and all this. And they were just getting away with it by paying off officials. They were all in cahoots, and they were just bribing their way through it whenever anything would come up. And so Komurasaki used her beauty in order to basically, cause these men to bankrupt themselves, and she ended up giving that money back to the people, more than likely as the witching hour boy. That's my speculation, at least, but that basically lines up. And I feel like in a previous review that I had stated this, because it really didn't make any sense for us to find sympathy with this old guy living in the capital, because it's just like, well, he's living in the capital, and a lot of these people in the capital, is people who would go through all this effort to just sell everything they have just for this woman, and it didn't feel genuine. Something about the whole situation reeked of, you know, something more underhanded, or them just being dirty and terrible and something like that. I know that Komurasaki was supposed to be portrayed as this not that great person, but it just reeked of something deeper underneath the surface, and there it is out in the open now. And ultimately Nami kind of admires this, because this is the exact same kind of tactics that you could easily see Nami doing, which she probably did in the past to begin with. And they all recognize him and all that good stuff. Meanwhile, Tonoyasu is talking things over with Kanjuro and Shinobu, and the Sanji, Frankie, Robin, saying that he's ready to, band together with the people of his village and, ignite the flames of rebellion, as many of them had given up originally, but he's happy to have allies in the fight against these bad people. And he's like, he talks very familiar with Shinobu and Kanjuro, and we see him just when he leaves after saying that he's ready to help out. He compliments Usopp, Nami, and the old lady they were talking with. And when the Kanjuro and Shinobu are asked who this man was, they outright say, we don't know him, we don't remember knowing him. Which, the difference here, the real noticeable point here, is the fact that Shinobu has been living these past 20 years and knows nothing about Tonoyasu, and Kanjuro, who at most has gone like maybe a few months outside of Wano, knows nothing about Tonoyasu. And yet Tonoyasu seems to know everything about them, and they didn't really question him because they were afraid of upsetting him. It's their more polite way of going about things, because they're just like, well, we didn't want to upset him being like, who the hell are you? It's just like, who the fuck are you, man? But, it creates this question, is he a real ally? Is it possible he was the one who gave away the information about them? It really raises a lot of questions in their eyes. And when it's explained, basically as Tonoyasu as a whole by the old lady, it's revealed that Otoko is his daughter, and he was forced to sell her off to the capital in order to gain funds. And as Otoko works in the capital, she sends money back to Tonoyasu, and Tonoyasu basically distributes it amongst the people and helps them out here and there, getting them food, just basically livening up people's lives for the most part. He's portrayed as almost like a patron saint to these people. And it really, Oda's really trying his best to sow a lot of questions in the minds of the fans of just who might be the traitor, and all these characters who have these double meanings and, things behind the surface and stuff like that make you question whether or not they might be the reason why, our characters are in this dire situation of not knowing what to do and their various allies being captured. But I don't feel that might be the case, because while this story had put Komurasaki in the clear for the most part, because a lot of the stuff she did seems to be through altruistic means and stuff like that. Tonoyasu selling off his daughter seems very petty, but at the same time, you gotta understand, that was a much more common practice in feudal Japan. You have to sell off your young because they could work off your debt because they were younger and without debt, so the sins of the father basically being passed on to the child kind of situation. And it was very, very common for young children, especially young girls, to be sold into the situation that Otoko was sold into so they could pay off their parents' debt. It's a very shady way of doing things, but your parent owes money, they're unable to truly work it off for the most part, so now you have to work it off. A very unfair way of going about things. That's why there are a lot of stipulations in terms of today's world, where it's just like, well, if the person who borrowed doesn't have the money and ultimately dies, then that loan is null and void. Don't try to squeeze money out of mourning people. It's a very tasteless act for the most part. But I've dwelled on this enough. We then cut back over to the Udon prisons, where we find that Luffy is still trying his best to learn this new technique. Old man Hio is telling him that in Wano, haki is referred to as Ryo. And it's basically kind of reads as flowing cherry blossoms and stuff like that. It signifies a word meaning flow and stuff. But Luffy is not quite able to get it. He still kind of can't project that energy past the inner workings of his body, as Old Man Hio kind of puts it. He says that allow it in parts of your body where it need not flow into your fists. So it's almost like projected outward from your body. Allow it to escape beyond your body. It's basically like sending out an energy blast, like a ki blast for the most part. Just send that energy out. Don't keep it sealed within your body. Send it flying. Very reminiscent of Hunter x Hunter with Nen, and how you strengthen Nen in certain parts of your body, and you can use that Nen to also send out projectiles depending on what type of Nen user you are. So I like that they're starting to elaborate more on this power system. But again, this is something we've seen before, with characters like the Admirals putting up that barrier, or Rayleigh sending out that shockwave, or even sumo dude Shutenmaru. With the palm thrust he did to take on Luffy, that sent out these waves that would knock him away. That shockwave ability will definitely end up coming in handy. But as Luffy tries his best to learn, he just defeats everyone, basically. Everyone who tries to step to him. And even Queen's just like, dude, you're beating too many of them. But he's still very nonchalant about the situation with Luffy. And then eventually night ends up falling. Luffy and Old Man Hio still have the collars, so they're unable to leave the ring. So they're just kind of plopped in there with guards just posted around the ring for the most part. And ultimately Luffy's gonna get hungry, because I very much doubt they're gonna feed him or anything like that. They're trying to break his spirits down. And Old Man Hio starts to question Luffy after night falls about why he's trying his best to fight Kaido, especially considering, Hio had also learned about Luffy's loss. And Luffy, not wanting to give anything away, actually showing a bit of discretion, uses his Conqueror's Haki to just knock out all the surrounding guards, which is just like, Queen, what the hell, man? Why did you even bother posting these people? But Luffy just knocks him out so he can talk with Hio, and he asked if Hio knows who the Yonko are. Naturally, Hio does not. Luffy explains that he is one of the Emperors of the Sea. His goal is to try to beat them all and become Pirate King. And Hio says oh, you mean like Goldie Roger, showing that Hio does have information about Roger, but this is because Roger arrived on their shores over 20 years ago. Hio even remembers the name of Kinemon when Luffy says that, oh, Kinemon mentioned that before, and Hio's just like, who the heck are you, man? Only for Raizo to appear along with God, I am Caribou. So apparently the keys that Rizo had originally found were actually to Caribou's handcuffs. And as he arrives with Caribou, Rizo explains the whole situation to Hio. Hio's just in a bit of disbelief, but since Rizo hasn't aged, he's just like, okay, I have no choice but to believe this. Meanwhile, Caribou tries to get into Luffy's good graces. At first, Luffy is very reluctant to believe him, but after Caribou, reiterates that he turned over a new leaf, Luffy decides to believe him. But the thing about it is just like Caribou's so weak, and not to mention Luffy's become very good at sensing people's intentions. If Caribou even tries anything, he'll easily deal with the guy. Meanwhile, Hyogoro is just kind of like almost crying to a certain degree because he's in disbelief, like, oh my god, I can't believe it, the Red Sheaves are still alive, the Red Scabbers, Odin's son is still alive, Momosuke, the fires of rebellion still blaze on, and he asked to join Luffy in their rebellion, with Rizo explained that who Hyogoro is, a former Yakuza boss and a really influential person, and a really strong person on top of that. And Luffy asks him, it's just like, okay, yeah, let's join up, cool. And then Hyogoro goes on to explain about the structure of the Udon prison, how there are 4 other sections to the mine, and throughout those sections, various other people who aren't there so much because of petty theft and things like that are here as well. People who have actually risen against Orochi as well as Kaido and all that, especially these Yakuza bosses who would gladly join under the banner of the Kozuki clan. So, Luffy's all too ready to get them out, as well as Kawamatsu who has been captured and has been listening to this whole situation, and Hyogoro's just like, yeah, let's free him as well because he'd definitely come in handy. And Luffy's all too ready to just wreck the place and get everyone as their allies and get out of here, and Rice is just like, I don't think you understand, this won't be that easy, only for us to see that, Chopper's group is slowly approaching Udon prison. Like they're right outside, most like a mile or so away. So they're almost there, and that prison is going to come tumbling down. So, a lot of information in this chapter. Not an overly great chapter, but there was such a great amount of information that really helps you get to know where things are progressing, where things stand. Got a little speculation going on as to who the traitor is, and all that good information. A lot of shifting of your mindset of certain characters because of the information we receive about Bungo, Bingo, and Bongo in terms of Komurosaki, also known as Hiyori. So maybe it feels like we're getting more credibility on her being on the up and up, but then that brings Todoyasu into the spotlight. But I feel that he will also be a bit of a red herring as to who truly betrayed them. My money is still kinda on Shinobu to a certain degree, honestly, but at the same time, you have to wonder, how did they know about where Rizo was? That he was on Zoe. So, it makes you wonder, there has to be a deeper person than that. It has to be one of the minks, because that's as far as things would have gotten for them to have information. Nobody knew about Kinemon and Momosuke being on Punk Hazard. They knew about Rizo being on Zoe. So it had to go as far as the minks. So it's gotta be a mink that we're not thinking of. I can't see it as being Inuarashi or Nekomamushi. It has to be someone we're not quite thinking of. And ultimately, Oda's gonna be like, the clues were all there if you go back and look, and then we're gonna kick ourselves for not figuring it out as anyone watches back through the series. Or then it might have actually been very much on the down low and not very displayed prominently or something along those lines. Who knows? But hey, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about these Yakuza bosses joining Luffy? Do you feel it'll go smoothly with Big Mom, thrown into the mix? Or will things just erupt into more and more chaos until it spirals out of control? Not to mention we have the situation with Komurasaki and Tonoyasu. How do they come into play in this series as a whole? Who is Tonoyasu truly? And what role does he play as a whole in this, story arc? Again, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. And until then, if you liked this video, feel free to leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below so I might better myself for future videos. And how about subscribing and hitting the bell icon, because I will definitely be bringing you more chapter reviews of One Piece, way in the land of Wano. And if you want to find me on social media, feel free to Google Duuz-Diz-Din. I'm everywhere. And until the next video, keep things honorable and hone your hockey. Bye-bye.